Rule on this show is if you come in and do a good job the first time, you normally get a second invitation. And I love talking the coaching space. I talk to a lot of coaches off air. It's a very passionate community who have a huge role in developing our talent, those who are aspiring to play at the highest level and those who just want tennis to be their sport forever. And everyone's on a different journey, and the coaches are a huge part of that. John Paci, POWA Tennis, doing a power of work out in Rowville. Great to see you, John.
Thanks for having me back. I mean, yeah, you called me a lot. You're like, please. The reviews were so good, and I said, you know what? I'll get off coaching tonight. I'm back. No, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me back.
No, happy to squeeze you in any time. How, since I've seen you last, how's things tracking down at POWA?
Yeah, very well. We've grown another 20 or 30 students, which has been lovely. We've implemented a new red ball pathway program to ensure that the youngsters have a chance to make it through to the top, which has gone really well. So shout out to Cal Bennett for introducing that. And it's just full steam ahead coming into the summer of tennis.
Great stuff. If you want to check out what John and his team are doing, POWA, POWA tennis.com.au is where you can find out all the information. You brought a couple of guests in, so John, I'm going to let you do the honours and sort of set the scene of a couple of your compatriots tonight.
Yeah, well, speaking of high performance, I thought we've got to bring in the best for Brett. So we've got Sam Dineen here, who's one of our high performance boys, who's coached by Stefan Woolley at POWA, and I've got my athlete and also my good friend Tom Neylon, who does some coaching for us. So welcome, boys.
Thanks, Johnny.
Thank you, Johnny.
Yeah, good to have you on board. This is pretty comfortable, boys, isn't it, being in a radio
nice,
studio?
Bro. Yeah, very nice. Feel like I'm about to talk a lot here, and it's got all the gears.
Hey, happy for you to talk.
I'm happy
to sit back, Tom. You can do all the talking tonight. Just talk about your love for tennis for our listeners. You're in the car tonight. Just a bit about both your backgrounds. I mean, anytime you talk to a tennis player, they usually start when they're knee-high to a grasshopper, and it's the sport for life.
Yeah, exactly. My dad was a runner, very keen athlete. My mum just played a little bit of tennis, but basically since a very young age of 5, got into tennis, played a little bit of footy, but had a little natural talent for tennis and pursued that. I really love the challenge tennis offers and the skills you need to have to be a successful tennis player.
It helps when you're 6'5".
Yeah. Oh, thank God, genes.
Yeah, a lot of people tell me, Tom, that tennis players would make the best employees, right? So you go out and you try and tackle this tennis journey and dream, and everyone's sort of at a different level, and you've got to have a fair bit of resilience, almost like starting your own business. You're out there, it's you, and you sort of build all those characteristics that make you a great employee.
Yeah. Building on that, definitely tennis. I just randomly thought other week, I'm like, hang on, tennis is a sport where it's all on you. Like, you don't have a coach really be on court when you're playing those matches. Yeah, you got maybe golf, but they have a caddy. But tennis is very much you're on your own with your own thoughts, and whatever resilience you have, you'll need it when times are tough.
Yep.
And everyone who's played tennis, even at beginner level, feels a little bit of pressure because we just love to compete. And that's the best sport. The best type of sport is competition and those nice challenges you face.
Well said. Sam, tell us about the journey.
My journey started a little bit later. So I picked up tennis when I was probably about 12. And it was more or less because I'm competitive. My younger brother picked it up. I was more into footy, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to have to give it a crack. And then kind of as it went on, I found the love for it. Like Tommy said, the competitiveness, the challenges, keeping your cool on court. It's it really brings out the best in a lot of people. And that's why I reckon the coaching space and the tournament space, and actually tennis in Melbourne right now is in an amazing place, from the AO to the little startups. Like, we got the drink break going on at the moment. You have academies popping up everywhere. It's really good. And I'm just currently enjoying Melbourne tennis, playing and competing.
And you're about to go on a journey that's going to take you from these shores.
Yes, I am. Luckily enough, fortunately, a college has picked me up going in August. That's Pratt Community College in Kansas. with Coach Jarrett Johnson, who was on the show earlier.
He was. Yeah, we had him on as part of Lachlan's segment last
Yes.
week. That's one part of the US I haven't been to. Have you sort of looked up Kansas?
I have. I can't say I know a whole lot. I know that the Wizard of Oz
Yeah.
is there.
That's all that matters.
Look,
That's
I mean,
it.
it was the biggest, the biggest drawing point. Forget about the college, but no, like I couldn't agree more. I think the college pathway for high performance athletes and kids coming out of school that are really looking to take their tennis to the next level, it's definitely one way that helps you cut a lot of the costs of like the grueling ITF tour.
Yep.
Which I know Tommy's played a little bit of, and he could probably speak on a bit better. I haven't quite got into any of them yet, but looking to it. But it's just I think the best pathway for a lot
It
of
seems
people.
like a no-brainer, doesn't it, Tom, to me? And the more I talk the college space and hear from our Australians abroad, and Lachlan's done our segment. He'll be on in the second hour, catching up with a couple who are Alex Baldy and Catherine Auliad a little bit later on tonight. But it's not for everyone, and everyone goes down their different path, and some are a bit more impatient, probably want to jump on and let's get out there. But, it just makes sense to go for 4 years from an economical point of view, and you play a huge volume of matches. You come out probably a little hard. I think Adam Walton is a great story. Chatted to him a couple of times on this show, from no ranking to inside 100 in, about 2 years, 4 years at Tennessee.
Crazy.
Came out with this unbelievable sort of work ethic that you can talk to playing on the tour.
Yeah, I mean, I've just done a little stint over in Egypt. It was quite of a shock, I guess, because you see people play tennis over there like they're playing for their life. Here in Australia, we're lucky to have, we're quite fortunate to have many things. We're able to pretty much get a good job. But over there, it's just a different element. It was quite an experience. And yeah, with the college and the tennis here in Australia, it's either like two avenues. You go to college or you grind your guts out on the ITF tour.
Yep.
And it's quite tough. I did try go college a couple of years ago, but COVID. And it just raised eyebrows up a bit about going over there. Personally, I don't know. At the moment, I'm doing a uni degree, so I'm still using my time wisely, and I'm looking forward to play ITFs. I think now I'm ready. You build that experience up, that resilience, as I said earlier, and you learn to compete and compete hard. It's surely something that you want to do, and you've dedicated your life to a sport. Why not just give it your all? Like you only got a couple years, and then that's it. Yeah, you got your family. You got to start working. And the body.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And delving both into the coaching space as well. And John, you can maybe just talk about the options, even at a young age when you're still playing, but to look beyond. And I suppose when tennis is in your veins, you're either going to go probably into some sort of coaching or mentoring or administration perhaps, or some like to go into the media, depending, where you sort of reached in your career. But I mean, a lot go into that coaching space.
Absolutely. I think we're in a really beautiful age now. Like Sam touched on, it's not just the old school. You coach from 4 till 6 p.m. and then you go home. Like you can start a podcast. You can like Nen's doing on the drink break. You can do all these little collaborations, and most of all, that's what I'm really proud that Tom's doing right now. Like he's doing a uni degree, he's coaching, and he's playing state grade pennant, and we're going to head off overseas together next year to play some ITFs. So it's a really cool time where you can sort of do a little bit of everything to keep the tennis dream alive, which I feel like is pretty recent. I don't think it definitely didn't used to be like that. It was, if you weren't a good enough player, you coached. And if you were an average coach, you stopped.
Yeah.
So it's a really cool time now where even, I was on court today coaching, these boys were training. We met up for to come into a studio interview. So even just this is a little insight into what your life can turn into if you really dedicate it to tennis. It's awesome.
Yep, the doors can definitely open. I want to talk about this coach education space. I mean, we obviously had some correspondence into the show a couple of weeks ago, and I get a lot of correspondence from people who want to put their name or sometimes want to be anonymous about their passion. They're living and breathing a space that I'm not living every day. So I always say on this show, the people out there are the eyes for us who are seeing everything on the ground. And there's lots of discussion around the whole coaching space in terms of accreditation, what falls under Tennis Australia. There's some independent bodies,
Yep.
whether it be TCA, AATC, who are running a lot of coaching courses. But talk me through, just since we last had you in the whole coach education space.
Yeah, so obviously, for me, I think we spoke last time, I probably didn't get to the level that these boys are at now. I sort of got to that grade 1 pennant, and then that was it for me. So it was important from young to realise that if I wanted to be a coach, I had to get educated. I had to find a way to learn things that maybe you don't learn from being there and doing that, delving a little bit deeper. So step one was obviously, Tennis Australia, as all coaches do, as all coaches they should do. It's we've got fantastic people here. But then for me, it was kind of a no-brainer to look abroad. I mean, it's Europe and America. Well, Europe especially are creating these players. So I got online. I looked at courses. I looked for people, and yeah, I was lucky enough to get accepted into. It's the only ATP accredited coaching course in the world, which is really cool. So Alberto Castellani and Tony Nadal made it together. They're part of the board. So. It's the GPTCA, the Global Professional Tennis Coaching Association. Yep. So enrolled in that course, and just the insights coming straight out of Europe from those guys. It's simple, but it's just these things that we don't really learn because we're not over there. So yeah, that's been a big thing for me since we last spoke.
So open it up to all of you here, and you can all weigh in. But so a lot of people tell me, and the tennis club structure in Melbourne, for example, so you have and it all differs a little bit, but you got sort of the committee, the old-fashioned committee, and then you've got the coach who is normally obviously a paid employee, and then the team around the coach and looks after the business side in that regard. It differs obviously from club to club, but it's obviously I get a lot of feedback in that regard. But how do you sort of see it overall in terms of the way our clubs are running here in Melbourne?
Well, if I can just say quickly before you guys chime in, I think we definitely are in a season of change. Yep. It is shifting. Shout out to Eildon Park Tennis Club, like our committee there. They're fantastic. And it really is becoming more of a collaboration these days. It still is the structure of committee and coach separate, but I think the interactions now that coaches are having with their committees and their players is becoming a lot more modern. And I think, it's definitely a lot more of a collaboration these days, whereas it used to be very separate. And then even to the point, I know some committees are employing coaches to be almost like they're the boss, and you got those sort of structures happening. So, I think as long as committees and clubs are exploring different ways to do it, it's going to keep getting better.
Yeah. So on that, my coaching experience, I don't really work at a club. I work at a school. And so I work for Exor Perform, which has a agreement with the school. And so I don't deal with any of the committee. It's more so we have our first team, and then, all the kids that are interested in tennis, they then come for, the stock standard private lessons and the squads and the groups. But I was just saying in terms of communicating with the committee and everything, it's slightly different. It's a different format, in my opinion. I think it depends on what you're looking for out of a business, because that school avenue can work really, really well. Like you have the kids there, and then they come straight from school. They might be involved in the program. I know Tommy works with the school too. Yep. And lots of them will go elsewhere, but it might be easier. But as Johnny said, everything's changing now. It's like this wasn't a thing when I was going through school. It was like you'd leave school, you'd go to a club, and you'd be coached by maybe someone with an accreditation, or maybe someone without one.
It was a strong maybe.
Or maybe someone with. It was a strong maybe. I mean, I can think of coaches that I've had that I look back now, and with my tennis experience, I'd be like, I don't know if I should be holding the racket like that, or whatever it is. But no, there's so many different coaching platforms and ways to run academies and clubs out there now. It's just insane. It's very interesting.
Yeah. And on both what you said, what we have kind of developed at Eildon is it's almost like an academy. especially with this Red Bull program and the performance players we have. Like we see players coming in every day, and they're not amazing tennis players. They might just be beginner Red Ballers, but they're still coming to the club, treating it as like, oh yeah, this is a little community, doing their lesson, getting a lot out of it, and then being like, okay, I want to come back. And seeing kids just be like, oh, do we have to go? Do we have to go? And you're almost dragging them off the court. Yeah, it's good to see. We've all been at clubs where kids are like, what's the time? I want to go.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Is it hope time? And turning clubs into more of academies where you can foster the relationship more with the players. And what Sam was saying with the school, like the students as well. I work at Caulfield Grammar, and I've done a bit of work with the first and even just some year sevens. And I'm enjoying that a lot because I'm at a school where I'm doing a teaching degree as well, and I'm able to kind of use my skills in a tennis and teaching way, which is awesome. And you get along well with the students, and when that happens, it's awesome. But definitely that academy where they can be at the school and then maybe go to tennis or stay there, and play tennis and train, almost like college. I think a lot of people like that lifestyle, especially now with kids being on phones. I'm seeing a lot of that, seeing a lot of fundamental motor skills lacking amongst young kids, and it's just going to get more and more. It's going to be probably the biggest battle we're going to have as coaches moving forward with the next generation.
We're talking some coaching. John Paci's in the studio. POWA Tennis going beautifully. POWAtennis.com.au. Sam Dineen is going to get in the college pathway. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Grade 1 player at Eildon Park and doing some coaching at Wesley College. And Tom Neylon, state grade player at Royal South Yarra, currently coached by John. Eildon Park, coaches at POWA, Oakleigh Grammar, Caulfield Grammar. You're everywhere.
Yep.
Tom, John, a couple of things you just on what we were talking about leading into the show, just to punch out before we get into a couple of other topics. So POWA got a couple of tournament trips coming up during the Victoria-New South Wales grass swing. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we're really proud of that. That's something Stefan obviously set up when he first established the business that we've all grown really attached to. So we head off pretty much the second. Well, I go second week of Jan. It's my son's birthday in the first week. Love you, Romeo. But yeah, we're gone all of Jan into early Feb. We just go from Albury, Wodonga, Shepparton. We do all of them, and it's just my big thing as a coach is connection. There's no better way to connect with your athletes than actually getting a chance to give them a snapshot of what it's like, right? You're gone for a month, you're still only 3 hours from home, which is that safety net. But at the same time, these players are getting used to, being in each other's space, being tired, being irritable, losing a tough match, having to sit there and support. So the learning and the growth from those trips are just such a fantastic thing. And these boys can probably speak to that. They've been on 2 of them as players. I get to relax as a coach, but you guys do the hard work on them, that's for sure.
Yeah, they're fun. Definitely have done quite a lot of those trips. And that sort of progression from juniors to open tennis can be quite tough because you get juniors, if you're not making many friends because it's tennis, it's an individual sport. But having those groups, those power trips, awesome to make connections that you can have for so long. And then people start coming to you and they want to go on the trips, and by the time you're like 22, you're still doing it.
And that's the cool thing. Sorry to interrupt before we move on. I think that's something we're really proud of. I said this to you last time. It's not just for POWA players. Where it's someone from down the road in another academy, for whatever reason, their club might not be on that trip. They're more than welcome to join us. And I think you guys will feel that as well. It's an environment where we're all just tennis players. You know what I mean? It's not, come with us. I'm going to coach you now. It's just, we're connecting, we're venting to each other. If Tom's on a trip and I'm there, of course, I'm going to coach him. Might give Sam some advice if he wants it, but it's a really, really wholesome environment where we get players from all different clubs joining us, which is, I think, a really unique thing.
Obviously, it's a case-by-case basis. We're just talking about this during the ad break. So just a little rapid fire here just to get your thoughts, because I was talking to a well-regarded coach back and forth today who we've had on the show in the past, and the reality is, if you want to do anything decent in tennis from Australia, you've got to get on the aeroplane and get abroad. We're so far away, obviously, logistically. So getting uncomfortable going abroad. Now, I mean, it seems like the Australian calendar's been loaded up more and more, and that was a big argument probably 2 years ago. There weren't enough opportunities here, whether it be ITF level, now with the UTR Pro Series. It seems like the calendar has got a lot more for those that don't want to go abroad. But if you're really going to crack it, and this coach also said that, hey, we do a pretty good job in this country as far as coaching is concerned. Technically, tactically, a good feel and eye for tennis, but that champion's mindset, trying to go to the next level. So I'm watching Kim Birrell last night play a great match. I mean, toe-to-toe, 2.5 hours out on court. She'd never won a match for her country in singles, and now she's 0-4, and you could see the devastation afterwards because there's a lot more on her shoulders. So I want to be that fly on the wall trying to understand that side of things. What makes the great champions, and you can all weigh in here, but asking the questions, I mean, how do successful people think? How do we overcome the hurdles we're yet to overcome? How do we think differently? How do we make sure that we don't become a victim? How do we make sure that we don't make excuses? How do we become more accountable? How do we problem solve better? What conversations do we need to have? And how long can you actually travel by yourself? And talking to a lot of Australian players across the journey, some can go on the road for the whole year. Others can do maybe a 6-week block. Some 2 or 3, I need to get home in between. Tougher for the Aussies to get back and forth. But I just open it up for a general sort of player-coach discussion.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to start it off. I think you touched on it quickly just there. You said some guys and girls can go for a year. Some can do 6 weeks. It's definitely a case-by-case thing. Like, tennis is one of those sports. One size never fits all. You look at Daniil Medvedev and you look at Roger Federer. Yep. They are polar opposites, but both at the top of the game in their own right. I think, in my opinion, what makes a strong player is it's got to be something from within, as in a self-belief aspect. I coach the boys first right now, and I've got some guys that might not necessarily have the greatest techniques or be the best, and that goes all the way up to the ATP and the WTA Tour.
Yep.
But for whatever reason, they think they have it, and 90% of the time they do. So, and it's like I went to Italy, and Johnny set me up with a great coach over in Italy, and she just made me do one thing for an hour and a half until I got it.
Yep.
And she made me believe that I could do it. And now, to this day, I think about that one drill that she made me do for an hour and a half in 34-degree heat, and it gets me through breakers, and it helps me get over the nerves. It gives me some comfortability. So always said tennis is in the mind, and it really is. Like, everybody's capable. It's about how much you can really apply yourself, how much belief you have to do something.
Yeah, it's beautifully said. I think for me, just quickly, from a coaching point of view, I think it's just simplicity, intensity, and enjoyment. I think far too often parents are too serious from too young, and then, it has a flow-on effect. They start focusing on the wrong things. They create this, I think the biggest thing is they create this toxic fear of failure. We see from such young kids, I can't play that match. I'm not versing him. Why? Oh, my UTR is going to drop.
Yep.
Whereas in these, I always use Europe as an example. The European countries, it's how many tennis balls can I hit today? And I think that's a really simple thing. Love to play, enjoy playing, go hard. Parents be parents, coaches be coaches, and just enjoy the ride, because you're going to blink and then you're going to have a torn meniscus and be 35.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Since working with Johnny, he's definitely helped a lot with my tennis and mental and just life in general. And, he came up to me, he's like, oh, you're looking good, you're happy, you're doing well. I'm like, yeah. I mean, I don't play as much as anymore, like tennis-wise. Do like 4 days a week. For me, I'm doing like 6. But he's like, I'm like, I feel balanced. Like, I think being balanced makes you feel confident, because you've got the backbone of, you maybe have studies, work. So when you travel, you play those matches, that competitive, those big matches where it's like you might go to travel and then maybe get in. But having the balance makes you happy. You enjoy it day to day, and you're willing to kind of give up a bit of coin to do that, to pursue that. And that's something that has worked with me.
Yep.
feeling. I mean, the mental part of tennis itself is probably the hardest part, definitely. And you just got to be almost with it. Sometimes right people definitely helps. John's been awesome, so I'd like to thank him and shout out to him, even though he's right here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
No, he's going all right, isn't he? Going all right.
Yeah.
But look, in the cheap seats here, we absolutely recognise this is a tough global sport. It's a gladiator sport. It's one-on-one. Just about every country now has someone representing. I mean, every time I go into the rankings, the abbreviated country, what's this country? They've popped up now producing a tennis player. So the depth is enormous. Got about 30 seconds to a minute, but you have created a partnership with Play USA Tennis Pathways.
Yep. Shout out to Lockie, who's obviously a regular on your show. I've joined on as his partner now. So I'm a college agent here in Melbourne. That gives us another arm of power. We now have a direct route to college. You know, Sam Dineen's our second signature. Josh Cooper's our first. So shout out to you boys. And it's nice to have that link.
Great stuff, Boys Radio. We always run out of time, but thank you for coming in and just sharing a few thoughts. I reckon we reconvene at some stage while I'm on the road in 2025. We'll connect in some way, shape or form.
We'll meet you somewhere in Europe.
Let's do it. Let's just open up the mic and have a conversation about tennis. We could talk it forever. Well done. Thank you.
very
Yeah,
much.
loved it,
Appreciate
Brett.
Good man,
Thanks
Brett.
so
God
much.
bless. Thank you.
Make it in tennis. Careers in radio for the three of you.